Iranian leader leaves Tehran as Arabs attack him and the regime enters an unusually tense night, surrounded by mourning, silence and explosions that have not yet been fully explained. Abbas Araghchi, Iran's foreign minister, left the capital amid reports of new attacks in southern Iran, with his destination still unknown. This happened on the same day that the body of Ali Khamenei arrived at the Imam Reza shrine in Mashhad for the closing of the funeral ceremonies. I wish you had become a shaheed. You would have been better if you were. Oh Allah, we have pain, but you are the best. Mustafa appeared at the center of the tributes, but Mustafa, pointed out as the successor and new supreme leader, remained out of public view. Iran buried the old commander, but the new face of power did not appear before the crowd. At the same time, explosions were reported in sensitive areas such as Buxar, Bandar Abbas, Konarak, and Chabahar. While the state broadcaster tried to deny some of the reports and Washington avoided taking responsibility for the new explosions, the strongest suspicions turned toward the Gulf, with information from the Israeli press pointing to Kuwait and Bahrain as possible participants in a joint offensive against Iranian structures. The regime that spent years threatening its neighbors, closing routes, and using militias now sees its own territory become a target from several directions. What made Araghchi leave Tehran now? Why is Mustafa still hiding? How did the Arab nations get involved in this attack? I'll tell you all about it in a moment. If you like this kind of straightforward and no-nonsense content, consider subscribing because we have videos like this every day. Araghchi's move raised alarms because it doesn't seem like an ordinary trip. The Iranian foreign minister left Tehran precisely when the regime was facing a series of reports about explosions, air defense activity, and attacks on military and coastal sites. The most likely interpretation is simple. Either he was sent for an emergency round of negotiations or he got out of the way, while the situation was getting worse. In either scenario, the image is bad for Tehran. The head of diplomacy leaves the capital, while the regime tries to convince its own population that it still controls everything. Khamenei's burial in Mashhad put the crisis on symbolic display. The city received crowds, security forces, and ceremonies filled with slogans against the United States. But the absence of Moises Mortaba weighed more than many speeches. He was named as the successor after his father's death in the attack on February 28, 2026, but he did not appear in the main public appearances. This sends an uncomfortable message to the regime itself. The Islamic Republic tries to sell continuity, but the man who should embody that continuity remains invisible. In a power structure that thrives on symbols, presence, and fear, the absence of the new leader becomes a sign of victory. The people see the coffin of the former commander, but they don't see the successor. Military pressure has also increased in southern Iran. Reports from the region mentioned explosions in Bushehr, Bandar Abbas, Chabahar, and Konarak. Bushehr is significant because it houses Iran's main civilian nuclear facility. Bandar Abbas is a strategic point on the coast. Konarak is located on the Makran coast, near the Gulf of Oman, an important area for Iran's naval presence. Chabahar is also part of this pressure zone because it connects Iran to the open sea and to the routes that Tehran is trying to preserve during the ongoing crisis. Washington remains silent about the authorship of the new reports. The Pentagon did not make any clear operational announcement about this latest development, while some outlets quoted American officials saying that the United States was not involved in the explosions in the past few hours. This kind of silence doesn't end the crisis, it increases the suspense. When there is an attack, partial denial, and no public claim of responsibility, the political interpretation is that someone wants to put pressure on the regime without giving away the whole operation. That's where Kuwait and Bahrain become the focus of suspicion. Information from the Israeli press indicated that Gulf nations, probably these two, could have participated in a joint operation against Iran. Witnesses in Kuwait also reported launches. There is still no independent confirmation strong enough to establish this attribution as a settled fact, but the hypothesis alone already changes the gravity of the situation. If Gulf Arab nations have started to act directly against Iran, Tehran has lost the psychological comfort of believing it would only face the United States and Israel. The Iranian regime tried to deny explosions in places like Kashin, Sirik, and Jask. This denial may serve two purposes. The first is to control internal panic. The second is to avoid admitting that the Gulf has crossed a dangerous line. For Tehran, admitting that Arab neighbors attacked its territory would be acknowledging a regional humiliation. Iran has always tried to present itself as an intimidating power. But now it needs to explain why its coastline, its bases, and its routes are under pressure. The Konarak naval base became one of the key focal points of the night. Iranian authorities spoke of attacks against a military zone, and reports mentioned two waves. Even without clear confirmation of the origin of the aircraft, the choice of target says a lot. It's not just about scaring the population. The pressure targets the military structure, maritime route, and response capability. Whoever strikes Konarak sends a direct message to the Iranian Navy and to Tehran's plan of using the Gulf of Oman as a maneuvering area. But Mashhad also experienced tension outside the ceremony. Reports indicated that an armed man opened fire on members linked to the Revolutionary Guard and the Basij in the Safarazan region. The suspect was not captured at first. This detail is significant because Mashhad was filled with agents, intelligence officers, and security forces during the burial.
To his last moments among us, O Hussein never left his lips. Wherever he went, he said it.
If an internal attack happens precisely in this monitored environment, the message is that the regime's security is also facing cracks at home. Israel kept another front active in Gaza. The Israeli Defense Forces reported that they eliminated an important member linked to the production and supply of weapons for the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine General Command in southern Gaza. They also claim to have hit a Hamas sniper in the north. This point ties into the crisis because it shows that Israel is not only focusing on Iran. The pressure against the Iranian axis goes through Gaza, Lebanon, Syria, the Gulf, and Israeli borders. Netanyahu spoke with Trump again by phone on a night of sensitive decisions. The Israeli cabinet reported that the conversation was about coordination between the two nations, American movements in the Gulf, Erdogan's statements against Israel, and the need for security zones on the Israeli borders. Russia joined the discussion, trying to defend an agreement that includes all affected parties. Lavrov knows that Moscow doesn't want to be left out of a negotiation that involves Iran, the Gulf, the United States, oil, and trade routes. The Russian statement also reveals another point. The problem has already gone beyond Tehran and Washington. The impact has reached neighboring nations. It has affected trade and energy stability. The Iranian regime faces a difficult combination. The former leader was buried, the successor is still absent, and the foreign minister has left Tehran. Explosions hit coastal areas and suspicion points to a more direct involvement of the Gulf Arab nations. At the same time, Israel coordinates with Trump, Gaza remains under military pressure, and Moscow tries to preserve its place at the table. Tehran is still trying to sound tough. But the night revealed a regime surrounded by doubts. The strength he claimed to project outward has now come back to its own doorstep. The crisis continues because no one wants to admit weakness. Thank you very much for watching this video until the end. Support our project and contribute financially through the Pix key that appears on your screen. We are an independent channel focused on keeping you informed with the truth. Your contribution helps us stay on our feet. Thank you.